At a time when global attention remained fixed on the grinding conflict between Russia and Ukraine, a quieter but deeply human moment unfolded far from the headlines. A very different scene unfolded on the front lines. In the areas Russia officially calls the Special Military Operations Zone, or SVO, Muslim soldiers gathered at sunset not for combat, but for prayer and food. For the fighters of the Batyr Battalion, an Iftar meal was organized right in the war zone. The event was held under the guidance of religious leaders from Tatarstan, a republic within Russia with a large Muslim population. Representatives of the Muslim Spiritual Administration delivered humanitarian aid, spiritual guidance, and greetings on behalf of the region's mufti. They congratulated the soldiers ahead of Defender of the Fatherland Day, spoke about the virtues of Ramadan, and reminded them that even in war, faith and identity endure. To understand why such an event matters, it is important to understand what SVO actually means. The term stands for Special Military Operation, the official designation used by Russia for its campaign in Ukraine since February 2022. While most of the international community refers to it as a war, Russian authorities frame it as a targeted operation with defined military objectives. The SVO zone includes active combat areas, rear positions, logistics hubs, and territories under Russian control or influence. Among the most frequently mentioned locations are Donetsk and Luhansk, industrial regions in eastern Ukraine that have been contested since 2014 and became central battlefields after 2022. Despite years of fighting, the conflict has not ended. Russian forces remain deployed across the front, and Ukrainian troops continue to resist. The line of contact shifts slowly, but artillery duels, drone strikes, and reconnaissance operations occur daily. In these same areas, everyday military life continues alongside combat. Soldiers eat, sleep, repair equipment, maintain vehicles, and observe religious traditions when possible. For Muslim troops from regions such as Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, and the North Caucasus, Ramadan introduces an additional layer of physical and spiritual challenge. Islamic law allows exemptions from fasting for those in extreme hardship, travel, or combat, and many military clerics advise soldiers accordingly. Some troops attempt to fast when conditions permit, especially during quieter periods. Others postpone fasting due to the intense physical demands of warfare, long patrols, heavy gear, sleep deprivation, and constant alertness. When sunset arrives and security allows, iftar in a combat zone is often simple: military rations, water, tea, and sometimes dates supplied by charitable organizations. The atmosphere is far from festive, yet many soldiers describe these moments as deeply meaningful, a brief return to normal life amid chaos. Religious support plays a key role. Military imams visit units, lead prayers in bunkers or shelters, deliver short sermons, and provide counseling. Large gatherings are rare for security reasons, but small groups often form quietly. The call to prayer is not broadcast openly, as noise discipline can be a matter of survival. Still, the presence of clergy reinforces morale and cohesion. For many soldiers, Ramadan becomes less about ritual perfection and more about endurance, patience, and solidarity. Another report from the same region illustrates how military activity extends beyond combat. Personnel from the Military Automobile Inspectorate, known as VAI, of Russia's Western Group of Forces held ceremonial events in the Luhansk People's Republic. This territory, claimed by Russia as a separate republic, has become both a frontline zone and a rear area for military administration. Inspectors greeted military drivers, presented gifts in honor of Defender of the Fatherland Day, and visited a local school to deliver road safety lectures to students. The visit concluded with commemorative presents for the children. Such events are often presented as efforts to maintain public order, support civilians, and demonstrate stability in areas under Russian control. The timing of these activities is noteworthy. Defender of the Fatherland Day, celebrated annually on February 23rd, honors military service and veterans across Russia. In 2026, Ramadan began around the evening of February 20th, meaning the religious observance and the national military holiday overlapped. As a result, soldiers in the SVO zone experienced both events almost simultaneously, fasting by day, attending ceremonies or receiving congratulations, and breaking their fast at night. A common question concerns the presence of NATO forces. Officially, the alliance itself, NATO, does not deploy combat troops directly into the conflict. Ukrainian forces remain the primary opponent on the battlefield. However, NATO countries provide extensive support in the form of weapons, intelligence, training, and financial assistance. Foreign volunteers and former soldiers from various countries have joined Ukrainian units, but they do not operate as official NATO formations. This distinction is central to how both sides describe the conflict. For Russian Muslim soldiers, identity is shaped by multiple loyalties to their country, their region, their unit, and their faith. Units like the Batyr Battalion symbolize this diversity within Russia's armed forces. Many troops see themselves as defending their homeland while also fulfilling religious duties as best they can under extraordinary circumstances. Aid deliveries from Tatarstan's Muslim community, food packages, clothing, and religious materials reinforce the connection between the front lines and home. Life in the SVO zone during Ramadan is defined by contradiction. Moments of prayer occur within earshot of artillery. Shared meals take place in fortified positions. Spiritual reflection coexists with tactical planning. Soldiers may spend the day operating drones, repairing armored vehicles, or manning defensive lines, then gather quietly at sunset to drink water and eat a few bites before returning to duty. Sleep is fragmented, often taken in short intervals between alerts. Weather conditions, from freezing winter nights to muddy spring thaws, add further strain. Yet military routines continue. Convoys move supplies forward, engineers build fortifications, medics treat casualties, and communication units maintain networks. Behind the front, administrative personnel coordinate logistics, including humanitarian assistance and religious outreach. Reports of mobile or improvised mosques, sometimes located in bunkers, highlight attempts to provide spiritual infrastructure even in austere conditions. For civilians in contested regions like Donetsk and Luhansk, the presence of organized events, school visits, and aid distribution can signal a degree of normalization, though security risks remain. Infrastructure damage, economic disruption, and population displacement continue to shape daily life. In this environment, any public gathering, religious or secular, carries both symbolic and practical significance. Ultimately, the story of Ramadan in the SVO zone is not just about religion or military operations alone. It is about how human routines persist in extreme environments. Soldiers celebrate national holidays, observe sacred months, and maintain connections to home while operating in one of the most dangerous settings on Earth. Whether sharing a simple iftar meal, receiving gifts from inspectors, or listening to a short sermon in a bunker, these moments offer psychological relief and reinforce group identity. As the conflict continues with no definitive resolution in sight, such scenes are likely to repeat year after year. The front lines may shift, strategies may evolve, and political negotiations may rise and fall, but the rhythms of military life, duty, hardship, camaraderie, and faith remain constant. In the fading light of a combat zone sunset, when weapons fall temporarily silent and a handful of soldiers gather to break their fast, the war recedes for a moment, replaced by something older and more enduring: the simple act of sharing food, belief, and hope under the most difficult circumstances imaginable. Beyond the physical hardships, technology has reshaped daily life in the SVO zone in ways few earlier wars experienced. Soldiers on both sides operate under constant aerial surveillance from drones, satellites, and electronic monitoring systems. This means even routine activities, cooking, moving vehicles, gathering in groups, must be carefully concealed. During Ramadan, this adds another layer of complexity. Preparing an iftar meal may require blackout conditions, limited heat signatures, and strict noise discipline. Yet these constraints also foster ingenuity. Compact stoves inside reinforced shelters, pre-packed food portions, and coordinated schedules that allow units to rotate through short breaks without compromising security. In this environment, discipline is not just a military virtue, but a survival mechanism. Another striking aspect is the psychological role of shared rituals. In prolonged conflicts, morale often depends less on dramatic victories and more on the ability to sustain cohesion over time. Celebrations like Defender of the Fatherland Day, combined with religious observances, create anchor points in an otherwise fluid and uncertain timeline. When inspectors deliver small gifts to drivers, or when clerics recite prayers with troops, these gestures signal that the soldiers have not been forgotten. Communication from home regions such as Tatarstan reinforces that connection, reminding troops that families, communities, and institutions are following their service closely. Even brief ceremonies in places like Luhansk People's Republic can strengthen the sense of purpose that sustains units through long deployments. Analysts often focus on equipment, strategy, and territorial control, but wars are ultimately fought by people whose beliefs, traditions, and identities influence how they endure hardship. The presence of Muslim soldiers from across the Russian Federation highlights the multi-ethnic character of its armed forces and demonstrates how national service and religious life can intersect even under fire. Whether through humanitarian aid deliveries, mobile prayer spaces, or quiet meals at sunset, these practices illustrate a broader narrative that the human dimension of warfare, resilience, faith, and community can be as decisive as firepower. In the end, the story of Ramadan in the SVO zone is not defined solely by conflict, politics, or geography. It is defined by endurance. As long as the fighting continues between Russia and Ukraine, soldiers will continue to adapt their lives to the realities around them, balancing duty with belief, survival with tradition, and hardship with moments of quiet humanity.
Яблуки у курином бульйоне.